Hello and welcome to Round 11 coverage of Grand Prix Las Vegas. This is Dominaria Limited. We're watching Alexander Hayne, the Pro Tour champion, at 9-1, playing against Caleb Myers at 9-1. What do we saw Alexander Hayne draft on camera. We saw him splashing Mammoth Spider against Hao Shengwan. What is Caleb go? What does he have going on? I see green and red. Is he a two-color deck?
Yeah, Caleb has a really nice green-red deck that features both the Grand Warlord Rada and Halar the Fire Fletcher. So exactly like kind of a very nice green-red beatdown deck with a little bit of kicker sub-theme, tons of rares, two-headed giant. He's got the Territorialosaurus, Steel Leaf Champion, plus the aforementioned Grand Warlord Rada. So it's a really nice version of green-red.
So some of the cards we saw maybe slip past Shahar Shenhar when we watched that draft, the Sap Herd here, maybe the Halar.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alex's deck is interesting. I was giving him some trouble for the splash of two Mammoth Spiders, but he said it wasn't really clear what colors he was supposed to be in. He's pretty happy with his red-black-green deck, and we saw it really perform well against Hao Shenghuang in the first round.
So also we see that Alexander cycled, with Air Bunnies here, cycled a Warlord's Fury.
Yeah, and I think that Warlord's Fury card we had just discussed off camera, one of the cards I really, really like in this format. So even if you never get any benefit out of the benefit for your creatures, just being able to cycle in this format when you have some grimy kind of mana bases and weird splashes, and some of the legendary bombs are so powerful, being able to thin your deck and get to them is so powerful.
Yeah, I've played as many as 4
wow.
in a deck and not regretted it at all. It was a wizard deck, so it also had some added bonuses. So Skittering Surveyor is the only creature on Alexander's board, but there is Whisper.
Yeah, Whisper, really powerful, long game card. But here, you see Caleb just kind of being aggressive. He's got
Shivan Fire takes it out. And Krosan Druid and Sap Herd getting in there. And the Skittering Surveyor can only look.
Right.
As they rumble by, he's 1-2, and Llanowar Elves showing up late to the party like it usually does.
Yeah, and Caleb in great shape, but this is a board that gets totally stonewalled by one Mammoth Spider. So Alex finds a fifth land. Let's see what he can add to the board. Oh, boy.
Bloodstone Golem.
Yeah, not ideal, although, he has so many cards in his hand, and he looks like miss a land drop. So, Caleb will be having to think about what could a green, red, and black mana represent.
And the card that you're really on the lookout for from Alex is Demon Lord Belzniak.
Yeah.
Right? And look at this. He's going to double block here. Get that Krosan Druid off. He's willing to trade his Goblin.
Yeah, and Alex very, very happy that no trick forthcoming from Caleb here.
But also, if there was a trick, is he really that upset if he loses either a Surveyor or a Bloodstone Goblin? I mean, they're kind of like the back end of his bench.
Yeah, the value of the creature is not very high, but just from a tempo perspective, he's already so far behind, life total down to 12. He wants to kind of continue to kind of, grind out good trades here.
Oh, hi, Demon Lord Belzniak. Here we go, and then we got a reader here for Caleb. Not a card, it's a mythic rare. You don't necessarily see it in play very often. Doesn't get passed a lot.
Yeah, and this is certainly one of the single very best cards in Dominaria Limited. Really, really powerful. And here, it finds Alexander a Shivan Fire, which is just amazing. Even if this combat step goes really poorly, Alex will be able to untap with 6 lands and at least 1 removal spell in his hand.
All right, Caleb. Green-red, not really good at dealing with the Demon Lord.
Yeah. And
certainly not game 1 anyway.
And you see this attack just screams Gift of Growth, right? He's basically saying, and we see Alex play with I think, a kind of a really advanced block to block the smaller creature, reading Caleb for the Gift of Growth and getting the trade as opposed to getting blown out.
And getting the 2-for-1 there.
Yeah, exactly.
3-for-1 really, because he also got the Shivan Fire in hand.
Yep.
And, suddenly this board is, if he can put something big down to hold it, he can have stabilized this with enough life left that he doesn't have to worry about Caleb just bum rushing past him.
Yeah, life total is precarious, and Caleb has options like Skizzik and like Warcry Phoenix that can come in and deal chunks of damage out of nowhere. So Alex still needs to be very careful, but I think that really smart block there has put him in a good position to stabilize in the mid game.
So 2 Power Stone shards in Alex's deck. A big part of that probably the Mishra's self-replicator.
Yep, for the self-replicator. He's also, he's trying to accelerate to his bombs like Mammoth Spider. So,
how do you feel about Mishra's self-replicator? Where does that card sit for you?
This is part of the beauty of Dominaria Limited, which is that when it first came out, I thought it was a bomb. Then I thought it was borderline unplayable, and now I have no idea how to feel about it.
Steel Leaf Champion has come down for Caleb Myers, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem here. Alex is able to trade Skittering Surveyor and Shivan Fire for the Mammoth Spider, but now, his 5/4 creature that you really need a pretty formidable body on the table in order to block that.
Yeah, what he'd love to have is just a cast down.
I think what he has is a second Power Stone shard.
Wow. Storm count is 1. Wow, he's just going off.
Got to get that deck into... Oh, wow, look at that. He's got another Shivan Fire. He's able to kick it and still have enough mana left over to make another play. Oh, he's going to get back Whisper, and he's going to get back Demon Lord Belzniok. Wow, this is great. And, really, he can withstand a small hit from these two, but Skizik would make the... Okay, nope.
Oh, and that's terrifying.
Oh, no, he only takes one. Uh-oh, this is probably going to be a Baloth Gorger. No, it's Thorn Elemental.
Yeah, that's ugly.
He has to kill that creature. He can't chump block it.
Yep.
He's at exactly 7. Does he have an answer?
Looks like Demon Lord Belzniok is going to try to find him an answer.
Okay. Sapling Migration, not the answer. And Alexander Haynes going to pick it up even if he puts any creature in front of it. The Thorn Elemental can just choose to deal its damage directly to Alexander Haynes instead of the creatures blocking it, and he was at the perfect number.
Yeah,
7.
Yep. Alex just seemed like couldn't quite stabilize, and Thorn Elemental is one of the cards in this format that provides a tremendous amount of reach once your opponent, takes the lead in the mid game. So Caleb able to sneak in that last 7 points.
Llanowar Elves realized the social faux pas of showing up late to the party. Comes in exactly on time here in Game 2. And, oh, by the way, I brought Steel Leaf Champion. I hope no one minds that I invited them to the party as well.
Yeah, I lost to this deck in the Pro Tour and Standard. So
the perfect opening for Caleb. You saw Steel Leaf Champion come down in the same exact 3 cards powering it out, but... Yeah. Maybe on turn 7 last time.
And Alex swings right in with the Bloodstone Goblin, not scared of the Steel Leaf Champion at all. Obviously representing something like a...
like one of the 2 Shivan Fires he showed his opponent last game. But now Caleb gets to attack with the Llanowar Elf too. Gets in for 6. Huge chunk out of Alex's life. And there's a Krosan Druid.
And so far what we're seeing is what happens when there's kind of a dirtily 3-color, mid-range deck versus just a focused green-red beatdown.
The good news, Alex has his 3 colors of mana. The bad news is he only has one of each land in play
that's tough.
After passing turn 4. And, yep. The Steel Leaf Champion just continues to rumble in. The Krosan Druid comes in as well. Alex is down to 7. I mean, Caleb is just making short work of him here.
Yeah, and still no 4th land.
Oh, boy, a Sprout Swarm at the end of the turn. Yeah, Alex is like, I don't actually need you to go through the motions of putting those tokens into play. Wow. I mean, that really is what this format's about. You talked about it, right? Because there's some really cool stuff you can do. I love Arona, and I love going deep with Arona, but I've definitely just gotten run over by a blue-red Wizards deck or a green-red, aggro deck while I'm just trying to set up some cool thing where I've discarded my Helm of the Host and I'm going to replay it. And, you don't always have time for that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and those sorts of 3-color, go long, grindy combo mid-range decks, are pretty powerful, but you have to have the early game set up in defense. And Alex wasn't able to put up the shields.
All right, well, we've got more Magic to show you. So let's go right down, and we're going to watch Keith Otash versus JT Booth, both players at 9-1. And let's see what's going on with their decks. Yeah, well, there's a Knight of Grace kicking things off. This again could look like a constructed deck from the Pro Tour here.
Yeah, and both of these players have more of those focused 2-color strategies. JT with a white-black deck, obviously the Knight of Grace, and then Keith with what you would consider a traditional white-blue, flyers and some historic theme.
We like to call that deck blue-white tempo.
Blue-white tempo.
There's a Davenant Trapper for JT Booth on turn 3. So, coming out with a really nice traditional curve here. And Keith has to attack for 1 in the air here. Has no good blocks. And there's Academy Drake.
Yeah, and white decks, if not built correctly, white can look pretty bad in this format. But some of these draws, Knight of Grace and a Davenant Trapper, has Keith under a tremendous amount of pressure early in this game.
How do you feel about Sarah's Disciple in general?
It's got to be part of a complete breakfast. You don't want to just be sticking Sarah Disciple in your deck, without a plan. So when you have things like Quende or you have tons of short swords, then Sarah Disciple absolutely can fill a nice spot at 2. But it's got to be in exactly the right deck. And Keith sending the turn on turn 4 blue-white, is going to send Raph Capuchin signals all over the place to JT.
Ether Glider was the play on turn 4 from JT Booth. Tap the flyer with the Davenant Trapper. Ether Glider sees the most play, I think, in combination with the Davenant Trapper.
And JT pump fakes a Forebear's Blade. I think that
he's also holding a Vicious Hunger.
Yeah,
a Vicious Offering.
Yeah, he's thinking about the possibility of Raph Capuchin, right? So if he plays that and then attacks with everything, Raph Capuchin's going to result in really good blocks for Keith.
Pump fakes again.
Yep.
His offensive line's really good. It's giving him a lot of time here. You know what? He just puts down a Skin Witch and passes the turn.
Yeah, not an ideal
but
turn.
you know what? There was Raph, and JT's like, I'd rather know what's going on.
Right.
But the problem here is now he can get further ambushed thanks to Raph being in play.
Yeah, JT, interestingly chooses to not send in the Knight of Grace there. So I would have been tempted to attack with the 3/2 first striker, but certainly smelling out the Raph Capuchin, nicely done to not suicide attack in any of his creatures.
Players checking their life totals.
But Keith has to love his position. He's the one making land drops. JT put a very non-threatening Skin Witch on the board last turn.
Yeah, and now Cloud Reader Sphinx comes down. One of the best cards in blue.
Yeah,
especially in this flyer deck. Just get to keep the momentum. Wow, look at that! He's going to keep both cards on top.
Horrible. It's a terrifying feeling when you're JT and you're sitting there and you just need those lands to keep developing your game plan.
Scry 2. It's like, neither of these are lands. I'll keep them.
Yeah. You wasted the Scry.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Might as well not even have had an ability.
Right.
And this is a very difficult board for JT to navigate. Although this is probably his best window. He's going to attack with everything.
Yeah.
So what are you smelling here? Adamant Will or just the Vicious Offering? Or
yeah, well, we saw JT have attacks like this against Shahar Shenhar in the last round. Had a nice charge. In another situation, he had the Vicious Offering. In another situation, he had the Adamant Will. And he has access to all of those cards in his deck. So, 3 mana, Keith, in great shape, but at 13 does want to be very careful. And interesting to see how he navigates this block. Certainly, there are very obvious blocks that he could make, but they happen to be exactly the blocks that walk into something like Charge.
Right. And just to give you the sense, with Charge, he could just kill his opponent with no blocks.
And he has, wow, this is going to work out really well for JT.
So Charge.
So 4 points coming in. JT doesn't lose any of his creatures. So Keith...
He doesn't even lose the Skin Witch.
No. Keith not respecting JT's ability to have a trick.
And then, wow. Vicious Offering is going to finish off the Cloud Reader Sphinx. But Keith knows the next 2 cards on top of his deck are, going to have some impact on the board. And it looks like there's a Legend in hand there.
Yep, and I think Keith, it's Evra. I think if Keith, watches this match back again, he would have liked to take a few more seconds to consider the possible cards from JT before making that block.
Well, your opponent's stuck on on mana. Maybe you're hoping there's a lot of expensive cards
Could be
stuck in their hand.
And Keith certainly still in perfectly fine shape, holding an Evra, and looks like a Gideon's Reproach to me.
Played an Aven Sentry this turn.
Yep. But now is the time where a card like Davenant Trapper can really start to do work.
Well, and look at this. It's going to deploy a huge threat to the board in Juggernaut. With the Trapper, it's going to tap the Raph. And now offers to get in. He says, you can trade with my Ether Glider. You can jump my Knight of Grace, or you can trade for my Davenant Trapper.
Man, I'm not sure why this Skin Witch is so scared. I would be sending him in there too.
Oh, but you know what? Now it's Keith's turn to have a trick, and he's got Gideon's Reproach to take down the Knight of Grace.
And the shield's still up with the Skin Witch on defense if something were to something were to happen. Evra looks pretty strong on this board.
Wow, yeah, here you go.
So
Evra Halcyon Witness.
Keith may be missing a little bit of a window to flash in Evra on JT's turn with Raf Kapashin. Just really excited to get it onto the table and didn't want to waste any time. No tricks here.
Now this is always interesting to me. You know, what do you do with Evra here? Are you willing to just try to eat a Juggernaut?
His flexibility is fairly limited by his life total here. A couple combat steps went pretty poorly for him, so he may. Okay.
So Raf is going to trade for the Juggernaut.
Yep, and that's certainly a defensible block for sure. I mean, the Raf has kind of done its duty in this game. And
Cabal Paladin comes down.
Yeah, and kind of the perfect situation for Cabal Paladin is the 4 power lets it trade off for that Evra. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with the way JT has navigated this game overall. You know, missing that 4th land drop for multiple turns, navigated to that one combat step in which he was able to use multiple tricks to decimate Keith's side of the table. And despite having to fight through, really superior card quality from Keith, has put himself in reasonable position to be able to sneak through these last points of damage.
Wow, boy. That is Black Blade Reforged.
Oh, it's Forebear's Blade.
Oh, that's the Forebear's Blade.
Yep.
Okay. Not as scary.
No, and
still pretty scary.
And Cabal Paladin's going to be more than happy to trade off for the Evra, but it's going to be a huge life total swing.
Yeah. Keith's life total goes up considerably.
Yeah, so Keith will go up to 14.
Yeah.
But he's out of action, so
no cards in hand, right?
I think, he might have one card in his hand. It's got the black sleeves. So
here's Forebear's Blade from JT Booth now.
He's deciding what to equip.
Puts it on the Ether Glider, which has Vigilance, which is not particularly useful
right.
on a creature that can't block.
Right. But Keith
but decides he'd rather just be able to continue to get through in the air there. There's a Mesa
wow.
Unicorn.
Mesa Unicorn, fantastic with equipment here. So really nice nice card for Keith to have. Ooh.
Oh, wow. Call the Cavalry. Get to 2/2 Vigilant Knight tokens here.
Yeah, at first I was going to question why JT wouldn't move the equipment before combat, and now we know the answer.
Yeah.
Draws the Call to the Cavalry, an incredible draw against this Mesa Unicorn here.
Oh, especially late in the game where, it's just this attrition war of like 1 or 2 creatures. To be able to get 2 guys out onto the board is huge. And Keith continues to play his lands. He's got 1 more card in hand.
The swings of limited Magic are sometimes quite a bit, right? Keith had a dominating board presence and had just scryed 2 cards to the top, it seems like, just a minute ago. And now we're in a situation in which he's down to really his last creature, and JT has a large evasive threat.
Oh, but now he has Baird.
Baird certainly a strong card, but it's not going to help him answer.
It's not going to help with in the air here.
Right.
And all of his lifelinkers are gone.
Yep.
All right, now we're going to see the blade move. And pays 2, so both of his creatures can attack.
Nice play here from JT. So happy to trade off the Knight token for Baird. Putting Keith down to basically nothing. And if Keith takes it, then JT's going to represent multiple lethal threats the next turn. And Keith's really in a tough spot.
He has nothing in hand. He's relying entirely on the top of his deck at this point.
Right. He would like to draw something like Academy Journey Mage next turn would be one of his strongest cards. I think that he does have a copy of Blackblade Reforged, so there's some temptation to just take it here and then just hope to draw that and get lucky and kill JT on the swing back.
All right, he decides that ultimately, though, he is going to take that trade. He's going to take 2 in the air, fall to 6, and the Forebear Blade just re-equips to the Ether Glider.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, the Baird actually would not have been lethal, as it would have only been 12 power of attacker, and that would not have, excuse me, it would have been 5 plus 7, 12 power of attacker. So,
all right,
JT Booth, game 1.
Yeah, Keith Otesh scoops it up, looks at the top card of his library, and says, on to game 2. And Keith on the play. And the Serra Disciple comes down again.
Yeah.
He has some nice cards. That, you talked about that idea of, wanting that, what did you say, a complete breakfast?
Yeah, you got to be part of a complete breakfast. You can't just be sticking 2-mana 1/1s in your deck and expect that to be the way to win. But, when combined with equipment, he's got Blackblade Reforged and the Forebear's Blade.
He's also got a Jousting Lance.
Jousting Lance. Plenty of ways to trigger Historic. It can look pretty strong. And nice start here from Keith.
Yeah, Serra Disciple into Relic Runner. Another card that benefits from those historic triggers.
Yeah, and again, that's the difficulty I think a lot of people say with drafting these white aggressive decks is that you can't, when you take Serra Disciples and Relic Runners, you need very specific types of cards to go with them. They don't have, they have such a low floor. The floor is in in the basement. So, but in the right kind of deck, it can provide a lot of pressure, and against a slow draw like JT has, that might be enough.
Well, JT is going to catch up a little bit with his... Oh, he's going to do Call to Cavalry here. He also has Juggernaut in hand.
This is where Keith would really like to have historic triggers for the rest of the game. Every turn.
Oh, well, this smells like a Jousting Lance to me. No, it's... that is the Blackblade Reforged. He does get the triggers.
Yep.
Unblockable, and then +1/+1 for the Disciple. Gets in for 4.
And now Serra Disciple sitting there as that evasive threat. If Keith's able to get up to 7 mana, I mean, that could just end the game in one shot.
He's
so
2 turns away from that.
Right.
Okay, JT's like, I attack. No cost to it for him. And now comes the Juggernaut. Blank.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 5 lands in play, no legend, so he's got to pay 7 to equip the blade.
Right, and if Keith were to put a bunch of walls in play, that would not help him against Juggernaut.
Some defenders would be fine,
Yes.
not walls specifically. So he's a turn away from being able to equip that.
Right. But now facing a pretty sizable army on JT's side, he does want to try to end the game as quickly as possible.
Right, that's going to drop JT to 11. There's a Unicorn, also Unicorn with a blade.
Pretty nice, yeah.
Blackblade Reforged, of course, referring to a classic card from Legends, Dakon Blackblade.
Correct. This is going to be an interesting turn to see how the players navigate it. I mean, JT has a pretty trivial attack with all of his creatures regardless of what he has in his hand. But how does Keith want to block? That's the real question.
I mean, if Keith's holding a 7th land in his hand, does he want to block?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean,
he's got to worry about a Vicious Offering, like sinking 7 mana into his creature. Oh, but you know what? It looks like he's got a Seal Away for the Juggernaut. And he can just take, I think, take that 4.
Yeah, pretty comfortably. No longer at risk of anything crazy actually killing him outright this turn.
1 card left.
Wow.
There's Knight of Grace.
But certainly, yeah, as you mentioned, very vulnerable to putting a land and then equipping that Blackblade Reforged, the Mesa Unicorn, which would be a gigantic swing.
Well, you know what? He just drew a land. So that's a 9/9 lifelink Unicorn if he decides to equip it. He can also get in for 9 in the air.
Yeah, the problem with that is that there are many more trees the game goes to where attacking for 9 in the air causes you to lose the game, basically. Whereas
You're saying going to 21 here?
Yeah, whereas here you go to 21, even if he's able to, first of all, he has to kill the Mesa Unicorn or the equipment, or he's just going to, eventually, you're going to have so many life that it doesn't matter. Even if he does that, you now still have the fallback plan of killing him in 2 turns with the Sarah Disciple. So, nice play here by Keith.
Yeah, it puts the Knight of Grace in the path there.
Interesting.
You know, I think wanting to maintain his vigilant creatures that are able to, you know, get a hit in, but then also step in the path of a unicorn.
You know, he might also have a copy of Tashar, Ancestor's Apostle, so, you know, he might think that that Knight of Grace he could get back for free from his graveyard.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it looks like he might actually have that card in hand.
It's hard to see.
I see a white legend.
Okay, yeah.
All right, bash.
Wow, so
into a first striking flyer here.
The same situation we saw game one. Game one, he attacked Easter Glider into Sarah Disciple. Keith made the block. JT showed him charge. We'll see what Keith does, and Keith's just going to take it.
Wow. Well, I mean, he's got a surplus of life at this point.
Right. And maybe Keith.
But he did have the charge. JT does have the charge.
Okay. All right, there is Tashar. Tashar, another one of those cards that, you know, I played this format a lot. I still don't know how to evaluate it. You know, it came out, I thought it was a bomb, then I thought it was terrible. Now I just don't know. And I like to joke about the evolution of limited formats, the 4-week cycle that I've tweeted about a few times. But now that Dominaria has been out for a long time, we've had a chance to play it a lot. I honestly can say I think this is one of the best limited formats that has ever been made. It is so replayable, and that is just so rare to say.
Oh boy, here's an Academy Journey Mage. Now what is he going to bounce? He's going to go with the Tashar. Force. He could just permanently deal with one of those Knight tokens.
Yeah.
But instead, looking for more of the tempo play that's going to force JT to use his mana next turn.
Yeah, certainly the defensible decision. I would have been tempted to maybe just eat one of those tokens.
Your eyebrows say you were a little skeptical.
Yeah, well, when you're abyssing people with Mesa Unicorn every turn, right? the ability to just take out a chump blocker is so strong. You know, obviously, if JT remains mana constrained, it's going to take him a few turns to assemble Tashar plus a legendary or historic.
What's that card that he just drew? Is that an Invoke the Divine?
I think it is. Yeah, that's an amazing draw.
Well, especially deployed mid-combat.
Right.
Yeah, and there are multiple targets too. You know, I mean, if somehow he had some other way to deal with the blade.
So JT trying to sneak this knight in, which is he may get picked off here.
You know what?
Oh wow!
Wow, look at this. JT just staying alive.
Yeah, there would have been some temptation from Keith's perspective to stick one of his other creatures in front of the knight just to remove a chump blocker.
He's going to play the Caligo Skinwitch, and he's keeping 3 mana open. He has the ability to invoke the Divine. There's another land. So that's now +8/+8 for the Mesa Unicorn. So in comes Academy Journey Mage.
Yeah, and
in comes this. And now JT is going to disenchant. Still good after 25 years.
Yeah, and Keith will probably have smelled something like that out when JT elected to not replay his Tashar. But what are you going to do, right? You can't just sit there and not attack.
And if you don't attack, he's still just going to kill it.
Exactly. So, you know, nothing Keith could do to avoid the situation.
And then trades the token for the Unicorn. And a little bit of life gain here for Keith. But
right.
JT suddenly has a opportunity to climb back into this game.
Yeah, we talked about inflection points in Modern yesterday. That was a major point in this game. And now,
now a Vicious Offering.
Yeah, JT's hand here. Just filled with gas.
Aether Glider doing what it does.
Good news for Keith is that the Mesa Unicorn Blackblade Reforged gained him a tremendous amount of life in this game. So.
Okay, there's Tashar, Ancestor's Apostle being replayed.
And in retrospect, you know, it actually probably would have worked out better for Keith had he put the Blackblade Reforged on his Sarah Disciple, and that was a play that some people might have done. I happen to agree with the decision Keith made at the time. It didn't work out given the way that the game developed, but certainly was a a defensible move.
Vicious Offering takes down the Academy Journey Mage. Now, the Forebear's Blade is going to give a Historic Trigger to Tashar, which lets him bring back the Knight of Grace.
Yeah, JT firing on all cylinders here. And
Wow.
Keith is going to need to use every bit of that life cushion to draw into some really powerful cards. His best draw at this point is something like a Weight of Memory, which with the amount of lands he has in play could allow him to draw multiple answers and or new threats.
How about a second Naked Relic Runner?
And this is what we were talking about earlier, right? That these cards like Relic Runner and Sarah Disciple, they have no floor. They can be literally pieces of paper, blank napkins at some point in the game, and here they are almost completely non-functional.
And when they look good, they look so good.
Right.
But, you know, on turn 15 of the game, they're usually pretty bad.
Yep. And now even if Keith were to draw something like Forebear's Blade, you know, he's going to need...
For example, a Cabal Evangel.
Right.
Slightly better than a Relic Runner.
Right.
And that's the hand. Wow. JT Booth navigated a pretty tough situation. And, Invoke the Divine, showing itself to be a very, very strong card through the first 2 rounds here. You know, we've seen it come into play a lot. And that was perfect timing. Got to actually kill the Blade and also kill the creature that was holding it. Tremendous.
Yeah, and when I watched JT's match against Shahar, a lot of the same things happen. Really powerful charges that in unexpected situations. So, you know, early kind of being Manalite, using the Davenant Trapper. I mean, his deck is not the highest power level, but the way that he navigated the situation allowed him to beat superior board positions and superior card quality.
Yeah, this is the second time I've been in a limited GP and watched Charge do way more work than I think a lot of people give that card credit for. Curious to see where people have it at the end of this weekend. We've got some more Magic for you coming up, but right now we have a couple of brief messages. Everybody, welcome back. We got more of this round coming up, and I think we're going to see Shahar Shenhar in action. Let's head down for more time walk action in the middle round here at Grand Prix Vegas, round 11. Shahar Shenhar, the two-time world champion, playing against Alex Sheftel. These players are at 8-2 and essentially playing for their top 8 lives here.
Yeah, certainly a third loss would be devastating at this point. So this is it. I mean, we talked about it earlier. You want to get to that second draft with 2 or fewer losses and back against the wall.
Sparring Construct comes down early for Alex.
Another one of those cards that serves very important functions in some decks, but is one of those synergy cards. You can't just stick Sparring Construct into your deck. You have to have specific plans to use the historic triggers or need artifacts or something like the Antiquities War. There needs to be a reason you put Sparring Construct in your deck.
Are we full Sultai lands there? Oh, no. It's just blue and black.
Yeah. Alex has many non-basics with 2 copies of Memorial to Folly and a Zilfrin Void. So, but straight blue-black from Alex.
Here we see Divination from Shahar Shenhar. You see him pause, wait for possibility of a syncopate when your opponent passes in the early turns with blue mana up. It's something you have to think about.
Yep, and a fairly ideal start for Shahar. He gets a 2-drop creature to put up a wall, and then Divination to refill the hand. So entering into the early middle stages, he's going to be pretty happy.
All right, there's Whisper.
Yeah, and Whisper, it's always a nice card to have online. You can do some really filthy things with it. Obviously, Alex hasn't had the chance to fill his graveyard yet, so it doesn't do anything quite yet.
I've not had a chance to see someone grievously misplay it, so you could have the Careless Whisper joke.
Oh, gosh.
I appreciate the effort at the laugh there, Paul. Thank you. All right, so what are we going to say? Oh, wow, look at this. You see the Kavu in hand. The Arcanist doesn't quite help with that.
And the players are kind of just passing the turn. No one has really done anything yet. I think that might be a copy of, it's a Befuddle in Shahar's hand. So a card I actually really like. I like Befuddle in this format.
That seems like a very Paul card. you seem to have one kind of odd combat trick.
Yes.
Maybe something that people won't expect. Well, here we're going to see the Saproling Migration. Now you get to see the Arcanist doing something. But Syncopate is the play from Alex Sheftel. He's able to counter it, and Shahar's Gate is down here. Tapped out, and Alex is able to get in for 3.
And I wonder if Shahar smelled out that Syncopate, because he had the ability to play the Untamed Kavu, but went with the Sapling Migration as kind of a test spell ahead of time.
But he might also, does he also have a Tatiova in hand?
Wow, yeah. And so that's
so he definitely smelled the Syncopate. So now he's going to offer the Tatiova. He's like, do you have another Syncopate? And it doesn't look like Alex is he quite let that result? He has, and now Shahar plays a land, draws a card, gains a life. This card is absurd.
And we talk about these little plays that people make in Limited, the really, truly great players like Shahar Shenhar, leading with the Sapling Migration so that he can resolve things that he much cares about a lot more. That's how you win these close games of Limited. So nice play by Shahar there on turn 5.
Now, let me ask you a question. Is by possibly, it's possible that there's another counter from Alex. Is he saying I value the Kavu more than the Tatiova, or is he just think it's just a better card here to stick, and it's worth the risk?
I think there's 2 things. First, it's unlikely that Alex has a second counterspell. Most decks don't even play 2 counterspells, and if they do, it's unlikely they just have them in their hand. And then second, Shahar really wanted to play a 6th land anyway, so he'd like to, wow.
Oh, well, how about Phyrexian Scripture?
Brutal. Yeah, one of the single best cards in all of Dominaria Limited, and now we see why he's including cards like Sparring Construct in his deck. So,
next turn he gets to Wrath all non-artifact creatures, which means both of his creatures are going to live because that +1/+1 counter on Whisper also turned it into an artifact,
right? As
per Chapter 1 of the Scriptures Manual.
Yes, Wrath targeting you next turn.
And Shahar's like, okay, let's go digging. And he has another land to play, so.
Yeah, and Shahar has been able to draw so many cards that he'll be able to rebuild his board the next turn, but doesn't change the fact that the Scripture is going to be extremely powerful.
Yeah, gets in with Tatyova.
Sure. Good. I mean, good clean attack, obviously.
And he also has the Befuddle, so
there you go.
Nothing can go super wrong here.
Right, and Tatyova, of course, going to die during Alex's draw step, so.
Yeah, passes the turn back. This is
maybe cleaning up here.
Oh yeah, he's gonna have to discard to hand size. All right, draws his second card, goes to chapter 2. Both of Shahar's creatures are going to be destroyed. Is he looking at does he have any kind of, does he have an eye to nowhere? I mean,
yeah.
Blink of an eye?
Yeah,
No, he decides he's going to use his mana to befuddle from the Arcanist before it dies.
Right, and Shahar does not have a copy of Blink of an Eye in his deck, but that's just, he would rather befuddle now and represent that he may have something with the blue and green mana. Whisper's activated ability still doesn't do anything for Alex, so.
He passes the turn back, and despite that, Shahar is in pretty good shape here just in terms of like how many cards he has in hand. He's going to Nature Spiral Tatyova while the getting's good. Again, Phyrexian Scripture is going to wipe out Shahar's graveyard next turn. So that was, while that card's pretty solid, that was the perfect time to have it.
Yeah, really, really strong play from Shahar Shenhar. Tatyova is just so brutal in a really long game as it goes long. So I'm surprised he hasn't just jammed her down there again. Okay, there it is.
All right. And he has a land in hand. Plays it. Oh, my gosh. This is just unbelievable. I mean, Scripture is just going to end up doing almost nothing in this game.
Almost, this is reminiscent of watching Matt Nass, with Mere Retriever and.
But Blink of an Eye is the last card in hand for Alex Sheftel, and he blinks his Phyrexian Scripture.
Yeah,
brings it back to hand, and he gets to do this all over again.
And certainly a nice play from Alex, but
again, Shahar is not in any kind of under any real pressure.
We've already seen him use the cleanup phase on turn 7, so.
All right, here's the Scripture again. Gets to put a second +1/+1. It's a double artifact.
Wow.
And gets to rumble in for 4. Again, Shahar just he's gotten to draw at least 4 extra cards.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 now off of Tatyova.
Plus the 2 divinations. I mean, he just has
my gosh, he just drew Grow from the Ashes.
He's so happy.
He's gonna kick it. He's gonna gain 2 life. He's gonna draw 2 cards. He's gonna put 2 lands into play untapped.
He's so happy. I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy for him. Yeah, honestly, it's hard to be too upset about something like this.
True vicarious joy.
Yeah. And this is Tatyova is just such a
oh my gosh,
a degenerate card in these kind of situations. And we know she's going to leave next turn, but a lot of the damage will have already been done.
Wow, look how thin his deck is already, and then draws 2 more cards.
And of course, he won't be committing any non-artifact creatures to the table this turn. Has another free attack with Tatyova as he knows that she'll be dying again on Alex's turn.
Now, the funny thing is, what he can do here is he can decide that he would rather lose an Academy Journey. Oh, no, Academy Journey Mage is only your opponent's creatures. Mm-hmm. That's too bad.
He may just want to deploy one now to bounce the Whisper just to remove the 2 counters since he's so flooded with resources right now. It could be that he just wants to preserve a little bit of his life total. So, but instead he's going to just pass and go to clean up.
He's going to discard to hand size for the second time. All right, discards 2 lands.
Wow.
All right.
So he's already gone through 13 of the 16 lands in his deck. So he only has 3 lands remaining in his library. Sorry, and 1 in his hand, so 2 lands remaining in his library.
You start worrying about decking yourself at this point?
Not really. I mean, he has so many powerful threats in his hand. And now, in theory, he's going to get to have a turn where Alex doesn't wrath. So,
His exiled pile is threatening to be larger than his deck next turn.
Yes.
But this is where we want to see a bunch of cards get replayed. You know, very unlikely. Let's start with the Arcanist.
Yes. After drawing 24 cards and having 19 lands out, we start with a Vidalian Arcanist.
But that is going to actually reduce the cost to cast Academy Journey Mage.
Yes.
That's why he does that. Gets to put Whisper back in Alex's hand. And again, like you said, deal with those 2 counters. And now the Kavu comes down, and it comes down as a 5/5 Vigilance.
Mm-hmm. And that's the Untamed Kavu
Untamed Kavu,
that
yeah.
he had in his opening hand.
Yeah.
So it's been waiting quite some time to, be deployed onto this table.
All right, and there is Chapter 3, which exiles the graveyard. Tatiova had a good run.
Mm-hmm.
Grow from the Ashes and Tatiova. That's all I really want to do in Magic.
So Alex now is trying to figure out, okay, I'm not going to fight my opponent on the card advantage axis, so how do I win this game? He has a copy of Cloud Reader Sphinx in his deck. He's got Neaster Glider, so may try to go to the air here.
All right, so he's going to start by replaying Whisper. But nothing to do with that. It's really just a 4-mana 2/2 right now.
Yeah. Whisper not looking that impressive, and Shahar is
Wow, yeah, he's got to be pretty excited to
he's
get the turn back here.
breathing a huge sigh of relief. Every Magic player wants to untap with 25 lands out and 19 cards in your hand.
Yeah, well, the second part's usually the tough one. Just trying to see. He does have 2 Academy Journey Mages in his deck.
And, his library is probably getting quite thin, so, the threats that he has in his deck, he does want to be careful that he doesn't, throw them away in unnecessary combat or lose them to removal spells. So he does want to make sure that he gets Alex dead.
Ultimately, just decides to go with the Untamed Kavu. 5/5 is very hard to deal with.
Right. And the reason we see him not attacking with the Academy Journey Mage, you'd think, Academy Journey Mage, great trade for Whisper, right? You'd be happy to do that. Well, Alex already has a copy of Memorial to Folly in play, and Shahar knows that remaining in his library is that 1 copy of Wild Onslaught that we saw him draft earlier. So Shahar's not interested in making trades right now. He only wants attacks that are strictly profitable.
And now he gets to kick an Academy Drake, make himself a 4/4 flyer. Alex fell to 9, so that Drake represents a pretty serious clock.
And if you came over to the table now, you would never know that Alex had wrathed Shahar's board twice.
Killed Tatiova twice.
Shahar just no respect for the second copy of Phyrexian Scriptures here.
It's a card I don't think I've had a chance to play with that card in Limited yet, other than at the pre-release in my Seal deck.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, it was really good.
Yes.
There is a Tolarian Scholar. And, not a lot of great follow-up. This hasn't been actually a tremendous draw from Alex other than the Scriptures and the blink of an eye.
Yeah, pretty unlucky with withdrawing so many lands and not having a Tayova out.
I mean, Shahar can really just take his time here, right? He can just attack with the Drake and then next turn attack with everything, and that'll be lethal.
Yeah, life total is still plenty healthy, but you're playing against a blue-black opponent who's got 10 lands out. So, you do want to try to end the game before Alex draws, some other kind of mythic or something that you maybe aren't thinking of on the top of your head that can allow him to get back into it.
So he does get in with Journey Mage, Drake, and the Untamed Kavu.
Right, and the major delta between this turn and last turn, the major difference is that now if Alex were to put a creature in front of the Academy Journey Mage, it would remove his ability to effectively double or triple block the Untamed Kavu. So we saw Shahar decline the offer, not offer a trade last turn with the Journey Mage. This turn the situation has changed.
All right, so Whisper is going to block the Journey Mage, presumably for a trade, and then going to try to speed bump the Untamed Kavu here. But between trample and flying, Alex is going to fall to 1. And there's a huge Baloth Gorger. Very well fed. Comes down with 3 counters on it. It's a 7-7. And now the Memorial to Folly. He's going to return Whisper because, well, that's his only creature in the graveyard other than the Sparring Construct. And really, we're even a second copy of Phyrexian Scripture would not do it at this point. Alex scoops them up, and Shahar Shenhar wins the game and goes into game 2 here. And it looks like Alex Sheftel has opted to be on the draw.
Yeah, pretty surprising for me that Alex would choose to draw after seeing multiple divinations from Shahar Shenhar in game 1. In general, you do not want to allow decks with multiple divinations to be on the play.
So now it's Alex who has a Vidalian Arcanist.
Now,
not a great draw from Shahar here.
Right.
Shahar has just a Llanowar Elf on turn 3, no third land drop.
This is part of the equity that you get when you choose to draw, right? Your opponent may just not draw a third land.
This is how they draw it up in the locker room.
That's right. And honestly, Alex's deck is not a beatdown deck by any stretch of the imagination. He's got sort of a combo control strategy. And so, a lot of the advantage of choosing to play is leaning on your opponent with tempo. Alex wouldn't be able to realize any of that equity. So by choosing to draw, he's saying, maybe my deck's a lot worse than Shahar's. Maybe I will try to catch him, without both colors of mana or stumbling in some other way.
So Tolarian Scholar is the play for Alex Sheftel. Shahar doesn't find a third land naturally, but does have Grow from the Ashes, which the elf helps him pay for. And he's able to get his island into play.
Yeah, and I think
which maybe unlocks divinations.
Exactly. I think he has a copy of divination in hand. So once he gets that online, things should run a lot more smoothly. Although Alex passing with 4 mana up, certainly representing counter magic.
And you would syncopate the heck out of a divination here?
I would probably just spill syncopate out of my hand as soon as I saw Shahar play anything. But this is why I don't normally play decks with a lot of counter magic. I can't. I'm not great at being disciplined.
So we see 2 mana. There's a Llanowar Scout. It's a card Shahar took surprisingly early in Pack 2. But, an amazing card with Tatyova.
So maybe I missaw his hand since he has a bunch of blue cards. Maybe he does not have a copy of Divination.
In come both creatures. And Shahar is going to take 1. Tolarian Scholar is going to bounce off the Llanowar Scout.
Interesting.
There's nothing on 5 mana here from Alex Sheftel.
Yeah.
Does his deck have a lot of air?
His deck does have a lot of air. He also has 3 copies of Eviscerate and a copy of Cast Down. So,
so he's just waiting for Shahar to put something good on the board.
Right. He can hand wave away these little.
There's your divination.
Creatures. Okay, interesting.
And by the way, that's an Eldest Reborn I see in hand for Shahar Shenhar. He also has a very powerful Black Saga.
So possibly some advanced maneuvering here by Shahar. Knowing that he was going to play the Llanowar Scout, he did not play Divination into the open mana last turn. Just thinking to myself, I really actually don't want to get this Divination syncopated, so I'll give Alex one more turn to tap mana on his turn.
Well, look at this. Cast Down is going to take down Llanowar Scout?
Yeah, it's a little surprising there that he would do that on end step as opposed to responding to the Divination, but he just wants to be, I guess at this point he's trying to be aggressive and get this game over with.
All right. Shahar Shenhar does not want to just throw his elf away. Falls to 12. And now with 6 mana, doesn't Alex have anything here?
And he has 2 copies of Feral Abomination. His deck would have been such a strong follow-up play if he had either of them here, but unfortunately not able to add to the board.
In the never-ending stream of 1-3s in this matchup.
Yeah, Shahar is brass man flooded. That's for sure.
And there's a Baloth Gorger. Just the front side. 4-4 for 4.
Yeah, and Alex will be happy to finally find something to eviscerate. Shahar has finally played a playable creature.
Well, it looks like he might also have Phyrexian Scripture in hand.
Interesting.
How do you play this now?
And actually, earlier in this game, Shahar passed as opposed to playing a Vidalian Arcanist, I think thinking about something like Phyrexian Scriptures. So he only committed this second Arcanist to the board after Alex had used a removal spell on his Llanowar Scout, thinking I might need it to block Tolarian Scholar and not fall too low. So Shahar is really playing very carefully and intelligently incorporating the information that he gained about Alex's deck in Game 1.
So Eviscerate takes down the Gorger. And Shahar falls to 11. The Arcanist has been sort of plinking away a point a turn. And Shahar's been very careful to preserve his Llanowar Elf. There's a lot of expensive things to do in his deck. Is he thinking about casting Eldest Reborn? Not a great spot for it.
Yeah, in this game, you're kind of really getting to see the way that Shahar thinks and approaches Magic. It's not like in Game 1, it was easy mode. You just put Tadyova out and put lands in the battlefield, then just spill all your cards on the table. Here he's having to make decisions and navigate a lot more carefully.
Well, here's Eldest Reborn. So Chapter 1, you sacrifice a creature.
Yeah, and he was hesitant to do that because, you know, the sacrificing of a Vidalian Arcanist, not that impressive, but I really like this play again from Shahar. He's getting the Eldest Reborn to the advanced stages of the chapter without deploying a lot of the other cards in his hand, and he's going to make sure that he's going to get to use the discard trigger before Alex empties his hand. So I really like the way Shahar's playing this game.
Thinking more about the Chapter 2 than Chapter 1 here.
Right. And he wants to get Chapter 3 down before, something like Phyrexian Scriptures empties his graveyard.
All right. You got to discard a card, Alex. Discards an island.
Eldest Reborn doesn't always have to be you sacrifice your Teferi, discard your Karn, and I'll return one to the battlefield. Sometimes a poor 3-for-1 is plenty for 5 mana.
Right. Well, it's funny because, we think about that all the time. You hear people talk about Planeswalkers. Like, oh, my Planeswalker's just going to die, but I got one card of advantage off of it, and that's why it's good. It also applies to sagas and to basically any card. It's anytime you can just get a little bit of advantage, have more cards in your hand than your opponent, is what Magic ends up being all about. So Academy Journey Mage bounces the Tolarian Scholar. Tolarian Scholar rejoins the battlefield on Alex's turn. I guess he does not have a Scripture.
Yeah, and Shahar, we saw just kind of spilling his hand onto the battlefield here.
Is he going to just do another Academy? He's got a Broken Bond.
Yeah, and that's the Broken Bond is the reason that he felt so comfortable in kind of now committing everything to the board, no longer scared of Phyrexian Scriptures' second chapter.
Yeah, there's another Journey Mage. This is where that card, the second one, is always back-breaking.
Yeah, he's turning up the heat here. He wants to get this game over with.
Returned the Baloth Gorger to play with Eldest Reborn. I mean, not really anything in Alex's graveyard anyway. And Llanowar Elves and Vidalian Arcanists and an Academy Journey Mage all get together on an unlikely adventure. I would absolutely see that movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Netflix original. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would pay an additional subscription fee to have access to it, but I would certainly watch it on something I'm already paying for. Okay.
I strongly encourage people to go back and rewatch the way that Shahar navigated the early turns in this game. I know I'm kind of harping on this because it seems like, it seems like, oh, he just drew better cards or whatever. But I think that early on in this game, things were really touch and go.
Wow, look at this, and now it's Shahar Shenhar with the Syncopate for Eviscerate.
Yeah. And now he's in a situation now where Alex is going to have to chump block the Baloth Gorger and go to 1. There's no longer anything that can get Alex out of this mess.
And Shahar still has the Broken Bond in hand if he needs it. Yep, and exactly the way you drew it up. Alex goes to 1. He's going to look at the next card of his library, but it's pretty hard to imagine what it could be that would let him not extend the hand here. Still had all these as I died. Wow. Shahar Shenhar just patiently. Game 1 was fascinating too, right? He got Phyrexian Scriptured twice. Mm-hmm. Alex was able to blink of an eye the Phyrexian Scripture after Chapter 2. Put it back to his hand, replay it, put a second counter on his Whisper, and Wrath Tatyova for the second time, but Shahar managed that game very nicely. And then in the second game, we saw him sort of slow play a little bit in terms of like putting stuff out on the board, obviously thinking about that scripture, but then when he had the broken bond, he completely changed his tempo of play.
And I think if you're learning at home and you're trying to see what is it about these great players that is different than maybe people in my local game store are doing, what separates Shahar Shenhar and lets him win these world championships, don't necessarily always look at the things that he's doing. Look at the things he's not doing. Look at the times that he's not utilizing his mana. Look at him not casting divination into 4 open lands.
Right. He finally got that blue source, and he could have just jammed a divination there, but respected the syncopate that he had seen.
Right. Wanted to just be as patient as possible. So those sorts of things we saw yesterday with Martin Juza not activating an Ether Vial. Those sorts of moves often are very subtle, but those are what separate the truly elite players that are actually winning these trophies.
Yeah, and I can tell you that Ether Vial play, that's something Paul, we walked into the feature match area this morning. Paul was sitting there with a group of other Hall of Famers, and he's like, this is just such a great play. He was still talking about it. So it's not just something that's put on air. It really is this impressive thing, and you estimated that there's like maybe single digits of Magic players who have the skill set and the experience to be able to do that. You're going to be able to talk about that play some more with people because we're swapping out our commentators right after these messages.